The rain didn't fall that night up it tacked. It slammed into the empty streets like it had something to prove, soaking the city in cold regret and forgotten promises. Under a flickering streetlight, a woman walked alone, drenched, exhausted, and barely holding herself together, while just a few steps away, a single father sat inside an aging car with a cracked windshield, counting the last fragile minutes of his life before everything fell apart. Neither of them knew it yet, but the smallest act of kindness about to happen in that storm would echo loudly enough to change both of their futures forever. If you believe kindness still matters in a world that feels cold and rushed, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more real, emotional stories that remind us who we are. Ethan Miller hadn't planned to stop that night. His mind was crowded with overdue bills, unanswered emails from his boss, and the weight of being everything to an 8-year-old boy who believed his father could fix anything. Since his wife passed away 2 years earlier, life had become a careful balancing act held together by exhaustion and love. He worked maintenance at a large corporate office downtown, a job he couldn't afford to lose, especially now that his supervisor had warned him earlier that week about budget cuts and downsizing. One more mistake, one more late arrival, and he would be gone. That night, the rain slowed traffic, and a red light dropped him at the edge of a deserted intersection. That was when he saw her. She moved slowly, each step heavy, her coat too thin to fight the rain, her hair plastered to her face, her shoes soaked through. She wasn't just wet, she looked defeated, like someone who had been walking much longer than her body could handle. She passed broken storefronts and dark bus stops without even glancing up, as if hope had already left her hours ago. Ethan told himself to look away. He told himself he was already late, already struggling, already one bad decision from disaster. But something deeper than logic stirred inside him, the same instinct that made him get out of bed every morning for his son even when grief still ached in his bones. The light turned green. Cars behind him honked impatiently. Still, Ethan pulled over. He stepped into the rain, the cold biting instantly through his jacket, and approached the woman carefully, not wanting to scare her. Up close, he noticed how tired her eyes were, how her hands trembled as she hugged her arms for warmth. She looked surprised, even wary, as most people would do when a stranger stopped at night in a storm. Ethan didn't offer grand promises or ask invasive questions. He simply offered shelter, warmth, and a ride to anywhere she needed to go. After a long moment of hesitation, the woman nodded, her strength clearly spent. Inside the car, the heater hummed weakly as the rain drummed on the roof. The woman kept her gaze fixed on the window, silent, guarded, as if words had failed her too many times before. Ethan didn't push. He understood silence. His home had been filled with it. After loss, as he drove, he learned in fragments that her name was Clara, that she had just lost her job that morning, and that what little money she had left wouldn't cover rent by the end of the week. She had been walking because buses stopped running and pride had kept her from asking anyone for help. By the time he dropped her near a modest apartment building, Ethan gave her more than a ride. He pressed a small folded bill into her hand, money he couldn't spare but couldn't keep either, and told her to take care of herself. He drove away before she could say anything, hoping he hadn't just made a terrible mistake. That night, Ethan returned home later than usual. His son was already asleep on the couch, homework spread beside him, the television glowing softly. Ethan carried him to bed, brushed rain from his own hair, and stared at the ceiling long after the house went quiet. He wondered if kindness was still practical in a world that punished vulnerability. He wondered if helping a stranger would cost him everything he was trying to protect. The next morning answered that question brutally. Ethan arrived at work to find an email waiting for him, flagged urgent. A maintenance error from the previous night had triggered an automated security alert. It wasn't even his fault. Outdated software, conflicting schedules about corporate didn't care about details. By noon, he was sitting across from management, his job hanging by a thread. Budget cuts were coming, they said. Reliability mattered, they said. And being late the night before had not gone unnoticed. Ethan felt his chest tighten as he thought of his son's school fees, groceries, rent. He nodded silently, absorbing the unspoken truth that his name was already halfway off the list. He left the office that afternoon feeling hollow, carrying a cardboard box filled with personal items he hadn't realized meant so much. The sky was clearer than the night before, cruelly bright, as if mocking him. He sat on the steps outside the building, unsure how to explain to his son that the world had just shifted again. That was when he noticed movement near the entrance. A woman was speaking urgently with the security desk, her posture confident, her voice steady. Something about her seemed familiar. It took a moment for recognition to settle. It was Clara. She looked different now, dry, composed, determined. She wore clean clothes, her hair pulled back neatly, and in her hands were documents and a folder she held with purpose. Ethan stood slowly, confusion swirling as she turned and met his eyes. Recognition flickered across her face too, followed by something deeper, resolve mixed with gratitude. Clara hadn't slept much after the rain-soaked night. Ethan's small act had broken through a wall she didn't realize she had built around herself. That ride, that warmth, that unasked kindness reminded her that she still mattered. Clara wasn't just unemployed, she was a compliance consultant who had been wrongfully terminated due to internal mismanagement. That morning, driven by a sudden clarity, she reviewed old emails and contracts and realized the company Ethan worked for had serious procedural violations, of ones she had previously flagged before being ignored and dismissed. Instead of walking away, Clara returned. She had spent hours preparing, gathering evidence, outlining risks, and drafting a formal report. Not out of revenge, but out of principle. When she learned which department Ethan worked in, she understood the timing wasn't coincidence. It was responsibility. She requested a meeting, citing urgent compliance concerns that could expose the company to lawsuits and public scrutiny. Management listened because they had no choice. Inside those walls, Clara laid everything out calmly and professionally. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't threaten. She simply told the truth, backed by documentation, timelines, and facts that couldn't be ignored. She explained how the maintenance alert that nearly cost Ethan his job was a symptom of deeper systemic failures, not individual negligence. Cutting experienced staff like Ethan would only worsen the problem. By late afternoon, decisions shifted. The layoffs were paused. The error was reclassified. Ethan's termination was reversed before it was even finalized. When Clara stepped outside and saw Ethan still there, waiting, fear etched into his face, she knew she had done the right thing. She didn't need thanks. She needed him to keep standing, just like he had helped her stand the night before. Ethan returned home that evening not with a box, but with relief so heavy it nearly brought him to his knees. He hugged his son longer than usual, cooked dinner with a lighter heart, and listened as laughter filled the spaces grief once dominated. Over the following weeks, life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became possible again. Ethan worked harder, not out of fear, but gratitude. Clara found new work as an independent consultant, respected and valued this time. Their paths crossed occasionally, always with a quiet understanding that some connections didn't need constant contact to remain powerful. The rain returned many times that year, but it never felt the same. Ethan learned that kindness wasn't weakness, it was courage. Clara learned that accepting help didn't erase strength, it rose toward it. And somewhere between a stormy night and an unexpected second chance, two strangers proved that the smallest moments can carry the greatest weight. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a moment when kindness changed your life or someone else's, please take a second to engage with this video. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them. Before we end, leave a comment sharing whether you believe one small act can truly change a life. Because sometimes, saving a stranger in the rain is the very thing that saves you when the sun rises.